Welcome to the world, everybody. I'ma paint you black and white. I'ma make you hate each other so that everyone will fight. I'ma give you all religion, let the righteous find the light. But I will also give you science to oppose the word of Christ. And I'ma give you borders, they're imaginary lines. If you cross them, go to war and win when everybody dies. And I'ma give you money that you'll value more than life. And let the 1% have everything while you fight to survive. And then I'll give you politics, I'll call it left and right. And while you divide yourselves, I will conquer both the sides. Can't you see? I'm the system, my whole purpose is divide. What you choose will never matter because everything is mine. Welcome to the system, everyone's a victim. Doesn't matter if you're black or white, it hates you all. Here inside the system, violence is a symptom. Fighting for what's right, but somehow everyone is wrong. Welcome to the system, everyone's a victim. Doesn't matter if you're black or white, it hates you all. Here inside the system, violence is a symptom. Fighting for what's right, but somehow everyone is wrong. Welcome to the system, everyone's a victim. Doesn't matter if you're black or white, it hates you all. Here inside the system, violence is a symptom. Fighting for what's right, but somehow everyone is wrong.
You can't give me the right to be a human being. I'm fine with that right. Now you can keep me from having that if you've got all the policemen and all the jobs on your side.
Hey everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Spokanearchy. This is episode 4, and tonight I have Simon joining me. I didn't do very good planning, so Gerard wasn't able to make it tonight, so I just have Simon with me. Thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so just going to get right into it today. Since we missed last week's episode, I had some technical difficulties and didn't get all the profound things that Simon and Gerard were saying, so that's why we didn't have an episode last weekend. But this week, in the Spokesman Review, the local paper here in Spokane, there was an article, I guess an opinion, not an article. I don't know if that's an article, just an op-ed, I guess, from Sean Vestal, his name is. He's a columnist for the paper. And he wrote an article. Let's see, it's entitled, I'll bring it up here, I guess you guys can see it. The title is Sean Vestal says, "Let the unvaxxed Spokane firefighters live with the consequence of their choice." And I'll just read a little bit of the beginning here, and then I'll take some of Simon's comments. It says, as the city council looks at soaring overtime costs in the fire department, some council members want to rehire firefighters who chose to leave their extraordinarily well-paid jobs rather than get vaccinated against COVID-19. Councilman Jonathan Bingle called it the right thing to do, which simply drips with irony. When it comes to matters of personal responsibility, respect for others, and the coronavirus, Bingle, who paraded around maskless at City Hall,
how dare he?
Right? Wouldn't recognize the right thing if it jabbed him in the arm. Huh. You get that little
nice
play on
pun
words?
There. Right, yeah, nice pun.
It says, but it's not too late for these former firefighters to do the actual right thing and to get vaccinated. Those shots are still available for the 23 members of the Spokane Fire Department who refused them. They are safe, effective, and they help everyone. Vaccinated firefighters and the public they serve avoid the worst consequences of a disease that has not yet gone away.
Right. Wow, that's a mouthful.
Right?
Yeah. So doing the actual right thing is self-preservation, right? Like I'm making my own choice off of maybe tons of things that were left out of this quote article.
Right.
You know, he didn't prove anything. We both read most of it. There was just blanket statements. So I don't know. I mean, if they don't want to be forced to do something, which is the actual right thing that they did was, well, they actually sacrificed their pay to stand up for what they believed in.
Right. Right. Well, I think one of the first things he says in here is, you know, they chose to leave their extraordinarily well-paid jobs. And he gets into that a little bit later in the article here. He talks about that they're some of the highest paid employees for the entire city. I think he even goes through Yeah, right here. Firefighters have an important job, and it's reflected in their ample pay. Scores of them earn six figures, and for years now, the best paid members of the fire department have been the best paid city employees. The Inlander took a recent look at city salaries and found the highest paid 60 employees came from fire, police, and dispatch.
Right.
So yeah, there's this guy. This is he points this guy out, Battalion Chief David Heiser. So apparently he's not working anymore. But yeah, he stopped working in October. He quit, and he made $300,000 in 2021. So not even a full year, he made $300,000.
Right.
And he's like dogging him out. I mean, I'm dogging him out because it's not. I mean, of all the government positions, I'll just say I think firefighters are probably one of the most acceptable, even though it's still like my money is still like taken from me by force. I don't have like a choice in it. There's, it's probably the most respectable, I guess.
Yeah,
but,
in a way, but like still, right? We're going back to voluntarism.
Right.
Our money's not being volunteered over there. It's being taken from me. And granted, maybe one day I may be a firefighter, but I'm in my 40s and I've never needed a firefighter. So, I don't know. Maybe I could be more wealthy with that. Right. Plus, in Spokane, I think it's like every 2 to 3 years, they're like getting new engines. I mean, some of these fire stations, oh my goodness.
Yeah, for sure. No, actually, that's
you're gonna put a pole barn up and store your vehicles, dude. You have to have this massive brick exterior. Yeah.
Just like every government building, it's got to be way more expensive when they do it. And then, like you said, like the new vehicles, like I saw this guy. I don't know, maybe he's this kind of guy, a battalion chief. I don't know. He's driving around. It's like he's got a F-350 Super Duty, brand new.
Right.
He's driving around. I mean, the crew cab, that's not a cheap truck, man.
No, if you're making $300,000 in 6 months, dude, 80 grand's nothing to you.
Dude. Right, exactly. So, let's see here. Well, I guess, the other thing to me that it just right at the beginning here that stands out is, of course, we just have to, everything has to go back to, COVID still. It still has to be prevalent. Right. Even if they're not talking about it in the main sense because people are over it, they still have to bring it back.
Yeah. Right.
The COVIDs. Sorry, I should call it that.
Yeah, the COVIDs.
Let's see, one here. Oh, here, this was a sentence here I didn't include here. He says, it's probably too late, though, for them to display a sense of public service and responsibility. Wait a minute, dude. I could probably, if I spent some time here, I could probably pull up a history of this guy, probably talking well about these firefighters and their public service, and now because they're not getting vaccinated, now they don't care about public service and the public they serve.
Well, yeah, it's an experimental jab. Right. They're not even calling it a vaccine. Why do you think they went to jab? Which is super interesting to me. No one wants to be jabbed.
Right.
And the word's jab.
Totally.
Jab, just jab them.
Well, yeah, and that's the word he's even using in this. It's crazy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then there's so many problems with this because we have so many discussions of so many different things, and the basis is we're working off of germ theory again. Right. And then it's being forced to do something means you're obviously a slave. And obviously these men, I don't know if there's men and women in this department, but they took a stand and they lost pay or whatever they did. And that's kind of honorable to me. I mean,
right. He breaks it down in here. Let me see if I can find it. Where he breaks down how many of them left. Oh yeah, so he says right here, but vaccine departures represent a very small part of this problem, which arose chiefly around pandemic-related hiring difficulties. So even his whole article is about that these guys are the problem. They didn't get vaccinated. But right here he says, but vaccine departures represent a very small part of this problem, which arose chiefly around pandemic-related hiring difficulties. So the fact that no one wanted to work because they were getting paid to stay home.
Right.
23 members of the department refused to get the jab. So there's 23, but so
there's a few that got accommodations.
Yeah, so it says 12 were given workplace
yeah.
accommodations. So yeah, they're still working. They're just not like in contact with people, I guess is what that means, probably.
Right. Yeah.
And then 3 retired, right? 3 retired, 2 resigned. So really only 4 were laid off. And the 2 that were resigned, they they might come back or whatever if they offered it. But I don't know. I don't like if I was one of those workers, I don't think I'd come back either. Like, no, dude, you already like forced your hand this way. Like, you made me make my decision. I left.
Yeah.
I think the other thing this points out, man, real quick is like I've had this idea for a while and other people have talked about it that, these mandates, all they're doing is they're weeding out, like, so within like the law enforcement ranks, like Washington State Patrol, they were all required. A lot of the cities in Washington required their police force, especially on the west side of the state, to get the vaccine. So like then you take these are the enforcers that these guys weren't willing to comply, so we got rid of them. Now the only ones left and the only ones that can be hired now are the ones that are willing to comply.
Right.
Like, obviously it's a little different out here in Spokane, like the Spokane County Sheriff's Department and the city didn't require that's what's weird, I guess. Oh, it's because they have a medical card or whatever, the firefighters. They're required by the state to get it because of that. And that's why like city police in Spokane didn't have to get it. But like this is just the kind of the first line of that in Spokane, I guess, is just and he's just recognizing it. Okay, these are the good guys. These are the ones we want. I mean, that's basically what he's saying here. We don't want these guys back. He says it somewhere in here, basically. In sacrificing their jobs on the altar of vaccine refusal, they showed something crucial about their lack of dedication to public safety that we should not forget. Right. So he's saying we don't. These guys are not public servants. We don't want them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, well, he's stating a couple different things in this, like the problem with lack of firefighters and police and all the overtime that the city's paying. Well, we're paying,
right?
But so which is it? Is it a COVID problem or a lack of people wanting going in those trades or whatever? I mean.
Right, yeah, because if they're so the pay problem, I guess here's how it works. When you look up like the salaries for Washington State Patrol on the website, for the state of Washington, where you look that stuff up, a lot of them have really high salaries, but they also work a lot of overtime. So like you said, so what is it with these jobs that that everybody has to work so much overtime, and that's why they make so much money? They have to be working all the time. Apparently, they always have a hard time finding workers, so everybody's working overtime.
Yeah, which is amazing to me.
Well, and right. So then, doesn't the overtime also come from during the George Floyd protests? Well, now we got to have cops down there that weren't normally scheduled, right? That's
right. Oh yeah.
Like a new thing. They weren't scheduled, so that's into the budget. Now we got overtime. Well, and I'm sure there is just the same with cops. The city, we have to, if there's going to be, 20 people in this park in a protest, we have to have, for every 20 people, we have to have 1 firefighter on hand for public safety. So,
could be too. Yeah, for sure.
So, the more of that kind of stuff is, there's going to be more. So I guess it's it's just like an endless cycle, really. You know what I mean?
and then who makes these decisions to where it's like, oh, we need these people over here at your expense,
right?
Because the city doesn't make or produce anything.
Right, totally. Yeah. So that kind of goes back to the ethics where he was talking about at the beginning that these public servants, and they kind of normally looked at as heroes and all that. Well, like you said earlier, they still take stolen money for their pay.
Right.
So
right.
I mean, that's a notch against them.
I know. And so the solution-oriented thing about this is like, what if we had a firefighter school and everybody went to firefighter school and we had fire trucks all over the place, the old ones, the new ones, and everybody knew how to do this stuff.
Right.
Problem solved. Like,
right. Well, yeah. What if firefighters actually fought fires instead of all these other things? Like, I don't know, here in Liberty Lake, maybe there's just more elderly people, and especially, I guess, where I live, in the neighborhood I live, there's more elderly people. So I hear like sirens a lot from fire engines. Right. And like, there's no fire. Like, why are they driving this big fire engine to a house for someone that's having a heart attack? And
they're EMT trained, dude.
Right. Well, and then why? But like, I guess then, like, why are the firefighters doing that? You know what I mean? Like, if they're supposed to be firefighters,
because they're not fighting fires, dude. They're sitting there.
Right. I don't want to sound like insensitive, but maybe like Uncle Joe needs to learn CPR and some life-saving skills, rather than taking money from me so that like he can go off fishing and not worry about mom that's elderly in the house. And
right. Wait, there's God, so many examples of how we can change society for the better. It's like, maybe in high school you take all these EMT classes all the way through your 4 years so you can save people's lives. But there's no money in that, right? Like,
right. Totally knows.
It's so blatantly obvious how to fix a lot of these things, but nobody wants to do it.
Right.
And then, all your ambulance is all privatized. So that costs you an arm and a leg.
Right. Yeah, there's something to that. When I first started this channel and started cop watching and everything, sometimes the ambulances show up on scene for different things.
Yeah. And
that really got me thinking, like, that's a racket. Like, that's one company that basically, look at like how huge that, I mean, AMR is pretty much every city across the entire country. That's a private company, right?
Privatized.
And it's one thing if they were like if it was so like Silverwood, let's say AMR like went into contract with Silverwood, like, okay, we're going to provide medical services. Like, if someone gets hurt at your theme park, we're going to rush them to the hospital, and then we're contracted for that. Like, yeah, it's one thing because that would be cheaper. You know what I mean? Because Silverwood's like, well, we don't want to pay you very much because we have to turn a profit, whereas the city's like, oh, how much money do you want? We'll just steal as much as you need to provide these services, because you can always convince the people to pay for like these medical and emergency services. Like, when do they get turned down? They hardly ever do.
Yeah, well, they're double dipping, because I'm pretty sure cities pay for the privatized, and then when you take a ride, you're paying, and your insurance only covers so much, if any ambulance ride at all.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah, you're right. So like, because the city pays ambulances to just be driving around out there.
There's no way they don't.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Like at night, they're just driving around. They're not like picking anyone up. They don't have their sirens. They're not rushing back to the hospital. They're just out like kind of on patrol, just like the cops.
Gotta burn up that diesel, dude.
Yeah. So if the city's paying for that, you're right, man. Like, why, when I call 911, which is a city service that I'm paying for with my tax dollars, why when I call 911 and the EMS shows up, why do I still have to pay for the ride to the hospital?
Right.
Or insurance? Like, nobody should have to. The city's already paying for that, man.
Pretty much. Yeah. I know.
I think you're right, man. It's a total double dip. Man. Well, I always did say, after my divorce, I started dating this girl that her ex worked for the military, and I always used to like, he was a defense contractor, and like you just started realizing everybody that's a private contractor that does business with the government, they have these amazing, like, they get so much money because it's a government contract. I'm like, it's all us idiots like sitting here trying to do business with each other. Like, will you please give me a little bit of your money? And if I give you this good or service, where the people that do it with the government, they're like, here, I'm going to make this for you. And I want a load of money, a ton of money, excuse me. And I want you to go steal it from them and just give it to me.
Right. Right.
Nobody cares.
No. Oh, like that's basically prevailing wage. Like,
right, totally.
When I was just graduated, my buddy worked for his dad and got prevailing wage jobs framing for schools at like $50 an hour. It was crazy.
Right. I did that actually when I first moved here, man. I was working at a cabinet shop, and I got a prevailing wage job at a school. They were building a school on the north side of Spokane. And yeah, I got paid like $40 an hour to literally screw the like handles on the cabinets, all the lockers and all that kind of stuff. That was
crazy, right?
It was insane. So yeah, anytime you're working with the government, you get those, you know, like the people, the flaggers standing on the side of the road, man. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not saying that it's like a great job. You know, you're out there in the weather and all that, but you're literally standing with a sign, holding a radio, talking, hey, did you send any cars through? Can I send these guys? Okay. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like it takes much, but those guys get paid pretty decently just because they're
starting
all
like
government jobs.
Starting like $20 an hour.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyhow, man, that's
yeah. So going back to like his whole thing was like, oh, let's virtue signal and get the jab so we can save everybody because COVID's deadly. And it's like, well, if you run the numbers, like, let's just say 100 people died in Spokane County in a year of COVID, whether you can prove it or not. That's a real small amount of people. Right.
Well, and I think I just read this little bit here towards the end, and it kind of leads me to believe, you know, there's this whole push with like the Trump politicians. So anyone who's like endorsed by Trump, like they don't want them in politics at all. They shouldn't be allowed to run. Trump shouldn't be allowed to run again, all this stuff. And so he just says here, the social strength of anti-vaxxer nonsense and COVID denial, boosted by ugly, cynical politics, was a national disgrace. We should at least expect more from public servants. So, like, it also, I guess, it backs up the idea that these people, like anybody who's in public service, they're better than just you and I, Simon. We're just like regular people. We don't care about anyone else.
Oh.
We don't accept stolen money and pretend to care.
No, they make the world operate and make us all safe, dude.
Right. Yeah. So it's just like forwarding that idea of like, okay, you know, and I guess it kind of even this idea that, like, I remember before I like actually understood what cops are like I do now, you know, I used to think they were like this force for good. And I remember thinking like in hearing this like concept of like, oh, well, only the best of the best are allowed to be cops. You know what I mean? Like, that's the cream of the crop. These are the best people with the best ethics and all that. And I remember thinking that.
Right.
And now it's like, whoa, wait a minute, dude. It's like the complete opposite. They have horrible ethics.
Yes.
We trust them like they have great ethics. And so, but that statement kind of just forwards that idea that, oh, these people in public service, man, they're either the experts or they at least know how to handle things and which experts to ask so that they can tell us what to do.
Right, basically.
And anyone who doesn't go along with that shouldn't be in public service, I guess.
Right, or alive, I guess.
Right.
And exit. How dare you? Yeah, I mean, the whole political spectrum thing, and this guy's just a child spouting his anger through words of frustration that nobody wants to believe what he believes. It's basically what it is.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, the last half of the article here. So as always, I'll put the link to this article in the description so you guys can go check it out yourself. But the whole last half of this article is all just basically talking about the COVIDs and how horrible it was and how these people didn't react the way he wanted them to, and that really makes him upset.
Right. With no facts of like, does the PCR actually test for anything?
Right. Yeah. It's all emotion based. There's not one even when he cites like the Inlander up here where he says that they, did an article about the highest paid people. He doesn't there's no link. You can't even go check that. You're supposed to take him at his word that, oh, okay, well, these guys, he said they're the highest paid people.
Yeah. Right. So it's
right. It's too bad Gerard wasn't here because I can't remember the name of the program, man, but there's something, it's like one of these programs that Soros funds or those type of people that, like people that are in journalism school in college, like they get these grants and stuff from this group, and basically they're taught how to forward the agenda that the globalists want. And I don't think this guy is one of them, but Gerard, when he told me about that program and showed me some things about it, he actually, there's 4 people for the Spokesman Review that are part of that, were part of that program.
It's this whole thing's programming. Every single thing about it.
Right.
Well,
it's just, I remember thinking when I was younger and before I kind of woke up to all this stuff, I remember thinking there's no way they could get that many people and infiltrate even a little town like Spokane. Spokane's not a big city, man. It's a town. It's a mid-sized, it's like an average US city.
Right.
And they've got four people in the Spokesman Review. I'll throw the links to that, what I'm talking about, in the description. I'll get it from Gerard before we post this video to that program so people can check it out that are watching this. But yeah, check it out in your town. You can see who was part of the program. And I guarantee you just about every publication or media outlet, whether it's a print or, local news station, they all have 1 or 2 probably that were in that program.
Yeah, but you gotta look at it too, that Spokane is kind of an important hub.
Yeah,
compared
it is.
To the west side.
Right.
Basically there's really nothing much around here, dude, but Spokane and Coeur d'Alene. And then you gotta go into Montana, and then that's even a little bit smaller, right? And then you keep going, and then you have to get basically Colorado to get something big again compared to the west side. So, infiltration and propaganda, man, it's huge. So,
well, if you look at the travel corridors on the Agenda 2030 maps and all that, they're they separate everything into zones.
Yeah.
The corridor going from up through Spokane here up into Canada, that's one of the major thoroughfares for getting goods back and forth.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is important. Actually, I think that's why Ozzy Knezovich is the sheriff here, man. There's a few Randy Kelton from Rule of Law Radio. I think that's what his program is called, right? Rule of Law.
I don't remember.
Anyways, when I was on his show a couple of times, and I told him that I was up here and dealing with Ozzy Knezovich, man, he got all animated and oh man, I got some things to tell you about that guy.
Yeah, so, I'm pretty sure you don't get into certain positions without being dirty, dude. It's just the deed. Right.
Well, and then so that's another thing. We have the Spokane elections for sheriff coming up this year, and Ozzy Knezovich isn't running. But no. Does it really matter? He's obvious. I'm sure whoever the guy he endorsed, Knowles or whatever, is going to be the guy. And one of the guys that Chamberlain already dropped out. Basically, the guy Ozzy didn't like, he just started bad-mouthing him, and now he dropped out already.
Didn't he get fired?
Yeah, he did get fired, I think.
Got fired.
But, I mean, I don't know. It's just like typical Ozzy stuff. Like Ozzy said in that, it just makes me laugh. He says, oh, I didn't, he lied, and that's why we fired him. We caught him lying, and I don't tolerate any lying. Well, that's interesting. I have a video and all this information. I did a complete video on a dude who lied about wrecking his car. You guys said that their investigation said that he was going like 90 miles an hour is what their investigation found. I was going 45, man. Flipped his car and totaled it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so public servants are not heroes, and they're not any better than any of us or anything like that. They're not smarter. Anything.
Definitely not smarter. Definitely not smart.
Probably are. They think a lot less critically. It's kind of what I've realized since I started this channel and dealing with people in public service, more so than any other like industry, like sector, I should say, not industry. They do not think for themselves. Like literally, if it's not like you ask them a question, and if it's not like in their little like tunnel vision, and they haven't been trained on it and how to answer it, it literally, man, it's like
they don't even follow their own policies of
no.
Like, so I mean, I don't want to bash other men and women either, but like, come on. Well, this is just the way we do things. Well, I read over here that you're supposed to do it this way. Nope. Wait a minute. And that's why we're in this mess. Right.
It would be interesting. Maybe this is something we should try to do, is catch up with some of these people that did lose their jobs over not getting vaccinated, that were public employees in the past. Because the other thing I've noticed is every public employee, like, so you said they don't follow their own policy because nobody ever questions them. Like, that's why their head does this when you question them and when you do these things, because nobody ever does it. So they've never had to look up what the policy is or what they're supposed to do, because they just say, oh, well, this is how we do it. And everyone goes, oh, you're a public servant. You're our master. You're part of the ruling class. Okay, we'll do it.
Right.
So when you just question a little bit and you're like, oh, well, why? You don't even have to like say no. Literally, all you have to do is ask why. And that just seriously, you can just see their eyes like, huh? Nobody ever said that.
Yeah. I know. I'm trying to train Zoe to every time she does something, she has got to film it. Right. And she went into the prosecutor's office and been like, I'm filing for discovery, and the secretary for the prosecutor's office, she ended up making her cry. Yes. And they called the sheriffs, and the sheriff's like, what's the problem? Like, Zoe's like, that's a great question, because I'm trying to figure it out. And I'm like, you got to record this stuff, dude. Right.
So Simon's daughter's been dealing with some issues from extortion attempt.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
That is super important. Recording anytime you deal with government officials, not only for like the record, so that you have, because I guarantee you, this is one of the first things I found out when I started cop watching and doing this channel. When I went to court, is the jury is going to believe them over me every single time if they're a public official, just because of articles like this and the sentiment they try to put out there. Like, oh,
right.
We don't want these people that don't trust vaccinations in public service.
Right. So it's like you hate humanity and want to hurt humanity because you didn't get a jab.
Right.
That you don't know what's in it. And then whatever the Pfizer report supposedly was leaked or whatever it was with all the side effects.
Right. Yep. Well, and they haven't, they've kind of stopped talking about, like, who the infected are. You know, at the beginning it was, it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated and all this. Right. And the tables have kind of turned now. Everybody that's getting sick, like, what was it Kamala Harris or Bill Gates, man, Mr. Bill Gates. I think he just tested positive. Like, don't tell me he wasn't. Maybe he wasn't vaccinated.
Right. Because he knows we did it. We made it.
Right. But like, yeah, there's several people. I think Kamala Harris or somebody in the administration recently contracted it as well, or I shouldn't say contracted, tested positive. So, like, yeah, all these vaccinated people are now getting it. So what does that mean? Like, why are they still pushing this narrative that it's still effective? And
money.
Safe. Right?
Money.
I'm sorry, man. I shouldn't ask that question.
Are you kidding? We got 20 billion over here. You know how much money? Like, Bill Gates was like running around with glee. I'm going to make $400 billion.
Right. Sorry, I was just scrolling on this article really quick to see if there was like a Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson ad on it somewhere.
Yeah, sponsored by Pfizer.
I'm sure the Spokesman Review takes money from a pharmaceutical company for sure, yeah.
Guaranteed.
Right.
So.
Okay, man. Well, it was a pretty good show tonight, I'd say, for the two of us on here.
Yeah.
You got anything else that you'd like to cover for this evening?
No, it's just preposterous that people are blaming other people when they have no factual evidence of anything going on and they just spout their mouth out. So there's free speech for some people and not free speech for everybody. Right,
agreed. And I guess one other takeaway from this would be, the whole thing, again, is talking about overtime. It doesn't really actually ever mention in the article that they're like short of firefighters. You're just saying that they're having to pay all this overtime. You know what I mean? They want to hire them.
Yeah, there's a little like sentence in there stating about like we've been dealing with this before even COVID, basically shortage of
firefighters
and police, supposedly.
Right. Oh, yeah, wow. It says there are 50 openings in the department.
Right.
So, wow, okay.
Let's go apply.
Right.
Grand. 4 days on, 4 days off. I'll take that.
Right, yeah, no kidding. Well, that's pretty crazy. I didn't realize that. I was going to say, like, so maybe he didn't look into, like, I mean, well, even though, he still didn't really look in. I guess my point was, he says, okay, how much it's expected to cost. So in both fire and police departments are expected to reach 7 million. So he's using this number of 7 million because that's a high, scary number to people in Spokane. Right. But that's the number for combined fire and police. And then he doesn't break it down. Like, okay, so how much of that is coming from like this budget issue is from overtime? What, like, give us some numbers instead of just some emotional appeal about, these public servants, they didn't get their jabs.
Well, yeah, the other thing that isn't specified is like, is the overtime because no one wants those jobs anymore or because of COVID? Like, you couldn't prove it either way.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point because, there were a lot of times when they would be sent home because they had a symptom and then they can't work for somebody. They got like quarantine.
Right.
So then everybody's forced to work overtime.
Right.
So especially during the last 2 years of the pandemic, I mean, you can't really use that as an example at all.
No.
So, all right. Well, I guess the lesson here is, people, remember when you read articles like this that they're simply opinions and emotional appeals, and that's pretty much it.
Definitely.
To get you to keep buying into the narrative that we got to have the state and that public officials are just wonderful and a cut above the rest of us schleps down here in the peasant class.
Right. Because they know better, but they can't balance a budget for some reason.
Right, yeah. People that can't balance a budget definitely know how to better to run my life than I do, right?
Right.
All right, man. Well, until next time, everybody, remember the best way to live free is to self-govern.
That's right.